Welcome to the Minds on a Mission podcast, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on pretty much any streaming platform of your choice. I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator, and today's lovely guest is Sunita Kumar.
Hello.
Hi there, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So my favorite thing to do to start is for anyone who may not know you, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, my name is Sunita, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur for about almost 15 years, very long time. My background is in business, engineering, and functional medicine. So, I have degrees in all of those things. And my entrepreneurial journey started roughly in 2011. And I started out in being an independent contractor, so doing marketing and marketing consulting and market research. Prior to being an entrepreneur, I was marketing executive. My MBA is in marketing. And I just wanted more freedom in my life at that point. And then it just kind of took over from there. I had no intention of being an entrepreneur or even being one for this long. So it's been a journey, and along the way, I got a degree in functional medicine and holistic health, nutrition. I'm really interested in that, and I had a product line in that, a supplement line in that. I just recently closed that. I ran that for about 7 years. It was an e-commerce business. And now I am starting a new venture at the intersection of personal development and, I guess you'd call it, spirituality, personal growth, and business. And it involves human design. And it is a business that helps entrepreneurs, particularly solopreneurs, really step into their businesses by using what I call new paradigm marketing. So it's marketing in a new way, using your superpowers, the way you want to do stuff, how your energy flows versus using the traditional systems that we've been taught when I started in business a long time ago that really don't work anymore. So that is the Business Aligned Alchemist. And that's the name of my brand, and that's me.
Wow, that's quite a journey. I would love to unpack that. My first thought was if you could kind of give us a brief explanation of both what functional medicine is and also human design.
Okay. Those are huge topics. I'll try to make them succinct. Functional medicine is the concept of root cause medicine. So it's essentially, instead of the allopathic, like you have a leg, you have a liver, you have a gut, you have a whatever. Functional medicine looks at like a spoke wheel approach, right? So think about a wheel and then there are all these spokes coming off of it. It's just a more of an interconnected essence of functional medicine where, if you have acne or something, it's coming from your gut. Or if you have an autoimmune condition, there is inflammation in the body. Of course, that's going to be related to the actual science of it, but there's also a lot of what they call antecedents, which are things that could have happened, trauma, other things that could have happened in your life that can predispose that. We're now seeing a lot more of epigenetics meaning it came from your ancestral line, your genetic line, not just genetic, but actual like trauma to them can then be carried with you. Right. And so that is one layer of functional medicine, and it is science-based. It is evidence-based, if you will. My interest in it is a little bit more of the holistic side, kind of like the stuff more and more people are talking about and know anyway. I mean, I got into this over a decade ago, but now everyone kind of is hip to the fact that, yeah, get sunshine and eat whole foods, and what you eat matters, and how much you sleep matters, and, herbs and all that, the original plant medicine, right? Herbs and things like that. And so I have a health condition that's quite common. It's known as PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. Very unheard of when I got into this 13 years ago. Yeah, about 13 years ago. Now more commonly talked about. And I wasn't happy with the Band-Aid approaches I was being given by Western medicine. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out myself. And it took me on a journey where I figured it out myself. I take a few supplements and I'm fine. And I've been that way fine for 15 years. And I was like, are you kidding me? That nobody knows anything about anything? Like what? And then, I'm kind of when we get into human design, for people who know about it, I'm a 5-1, which we'll talk about. That's like the researcher. So I kind of dig into things deep and I find the solutions no one's talking about. And then I got a degree in it. And then I started a product in it. So functional medicine is root cause medicine, holistic body. Human design. Human design is a system that is like, for people who know it, and most people have never heard of it, right? Human design is a system that is comprised of 4 energetic systems, or 2 energy systems, 2 divination systems, and they form a table. Think of like a table with 4 legs. And it is, the 4 systems are the Kabbalah, the chakra system, the I Ching system, which is out of China, and the Western astrology system. And it forms what they call a cosmic blueprint of you. So what is similar about those 2 systems is your functional medicine. One of the things I didn't mention about functional medicine is that it takes away this notion that we're all the same. Because a herb that's going to work for you is not going to, a herb that's going to work for me. And your gut is not going to look like mine. And your childhood history and family history is not going to be mine. Your genetics are not mine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Human design, let's layer that to human design. So if you have a DNA blueprint, human design is, you have a cosmic blueprint that is very complex. I'm not going to get into how that's formed, but let's just say you have a map of yourself. And that map is going to determine how you move through the world. It's going to determine how you magnetize people, how you repel people, what are the people you're going to cross paths with in your life that you're just going to magically connect with. And as a business owner, it's going to affect what business models are going to work for you, how you're going to best sell, market, influence, and positioning and messaging. It's going to influence all of those things.
Well, I love the way you explain that. As for like functional medicine, I had never heard that terminology beforehand. I've only one other time heard of human design, and the person actually told me to download this app, and I immediately saw it, and I was like, this is so confusing. I don't even know what I'm looking at. Like it, so when you brought that up, I was like, yes, because I want to know more about that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably are like, okay, what is this? Like, and having, you said it was cosmic blueprint, and then what was the other one again? Sorry.
I mean, it's a cosmic blueprint. So I was just trying to relay it because it is so dense. It is so complicated that if I'm talking to it on a podcast to people who have no idea, I would not be able to explain it in depth on this podcast.
Right.
Just for context, there are people who have human design podcasts. If you were to Google human design podcasts, they do episodes twice a week and they've been running for years, right? So that gives you a sense of the density of the topic, right? But I was just trying to relay to, like, if you think of like your body, if you know nothing about any of this stuff, if you said your body's a DNA blueprint of you, then let's call human design your cosmic blueprint of you, your energetic blueprint of you. And so it's this notion, it's called the science of differentiation by the person who founded it, which was, he's passed. But it was actually founded by an advertising executive. It's not somebody who was like this. I mean, he had a mystical experience, but he was a very normal, down-to-earth guy who took these 4 systems and made it a system in the late 80s. And then about in 2020 is when it exploded. So it sat kind of, I wouldn't say undiscovered, but it's still very niche. But nobody had heard of it before 2019.
Right.
2014. And he was Canadian. So it exploded in the UK, Australia, and British Commonwealth countries before it became much more popular in the US. And if you were to Google human design or go into Instagram and put in human design, you'd have 1,000 human design business coaches and like 1,000 human design podcasts. So it's like this microcosm of the business world, but then most people haven't heard of it. It's interesting.
Right. Yeah. So whereas it's very complex. I was wondering if anyone was going to look into it, and it's kind of like I said with me, I had got the app and I was like, this is so confusing. I don't even know what to start with. What would kind of be your advice for people getting into it, kind of not get so overwhelmed by all the things?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I'm going to just say two quick things. One, I would caution anybody to be downloading apps or looking at surface level stuff, because just like astrology, I'm also a trained astrologist, but I don't really advertise that as part of my business. A lot of it is garbage in, garbage out, right? Think of any kind of data, any kind of surface level. And a lot of the human design community has now become a profit making machine, like any business, even though it's a spiritual, it's all business. It's business, business, business. So a lot of these apps are kind of BS and a lot of them are inaccurate. So I would just caution anybody. And there's a particularly famous app that I'm not going to say just because I don't want to be that person. The app is very, very wrong. That's all I'll say about that. So I would say there is the official. So the guy who came up with the system, his name is Alan Krakauer. He's passed. He changed his name to Raharu. Okay, this I don't call him that. I'm not down with white people changing their name to ethnic names. It's something he did in the 80s. I'm not down. Most people call him that. I don't. I call him the founder. And he has a site called Jovian Archives. So I believe if you Google Jovian Archive, because I don't know the exact name, his official site's going to come up. And most of it is paid, everything you have to pay for, but there is a free calculator. A lot of coaches have this on their site, but then you have to give them your email address and yada, yada. You can just go to that site. You need your exact birth time, unfortunately, just like an astrology report. And that's it. You can get it right there. I don't know if you you don't have to fill out anything. You don't have to put your email. You fill it all in, it'll pop out a report. And that report will be like the high level of you. And I'm not going to tell you much, because if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. And then it's kind of like, do you want to decide there's a plethora of YouTube channels. I work with people in business on it. And then it's, there's kind of like two paths. People want to figure it out for free. And then there's people who want to work with somebody on it. Right. It's kind of like what choose your adventure. Right.
Right.
But let's say you were an alien that landed on Earth and you knew nothing about yourself. And then you were to put your information into this body graph. It would spit out, you're a blonde, female, white, and I don't know how tall you are, but let's say, I don't even know. Let's say you're 5'5". So that would give you that about you. That doesn't tell you much if you're an alien. You don't know what that means. You don't know what 5'5" means. You don't know what being a blonde female, but that puts you in a category. Mm-hmm. And then you could do more research on that if you wanted to, if that makes sense.
Right. I appreciate that explanation and kind of giving some insights, because I'm sure there's some people that are going to be like, what is this? Kind of want more. So you said when you were kind of giving an explanation of your journey, you initially started out as an independent contractor.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could tell us a little bit more about that, kind of your experience, and maybe anything you would kind of want to let people know if they were like, okay, I'm looking into becoming an independent contractor.
Yeah, I mean, that was 13 years ago. So that's a long time ago. The world was very different then, right? Right. Look, it was really easy. I picked up and moved. I wanted to change my life. I was over it. And I was an executive in New York City. I was an ad executive, and I picked up and left, drove one way to California about this time, 2011. And I was dating a guy in New York at the time, and we wanted to stay together. So I needed something that was very flexible. He was also an independent contractor, but he did tech stuff. So he would be on site at different client sites. So he could like kind of make it work that like he'd fly through California, way back or this or that. Like he could make it work. So I needed to be flexible too. And so remote work didn't exist then. If remote work had existed then, I'd probably still be working for somebody else. I was like, I had a deck in California. If anyone has lived in Manhattan, like there's no outside anything. I had all this amazing life, this new life. And I was like, I'm not going to spend it in traffic and I'm not spending it in an office. And I really was into my morning routine. I was like, I want to do chai. And so a lot of things, and you're going to probably hear this a lot in entrepreneurs and people who take risks, is sometimes you jump and you figure it out. I would recommend anybody who wants to go the entrepreneurial path to not do what I did, because I just took a risk and figured it out as I was been flying, trying to figure out how to fly the plane while the plane is diving. The whole thing of like, you hear the stories of like, well, I can't pay my rent in 3 days. And then you land the client contract. And then like, that was like my life for a long time. And it builds resilience and it probably allowed me to have the confidence to start a product line and do all that other crazy stuff. Right. So I guess my recommendation for someone who's a contractor is kind of really, if you're in a job right now, what are the skills? And again, I did this a long time ago. So the skills that are going to be in demand now are going to be different than back then, right? So, what are some skills that are in demand that you could package as an independent contractor and then try to steer your career into those skill sets? And they may not be the most lucrative skill sets, and it's not going to make you climb the ladder. So you have to decide, are you trying to climb the ladder in a job, or are you trying to package yourself as a consultant independent? And when you make that decision, it's a choose your own adventure. Your choices change.
Right.
Right. So, okay, that's number one. Number two. And number two, so that's number one. Number two, as a general rule, again, like I said, the world's changed, is, your network is your net worth in that arena. So your first your first contract is probably going to come from somebody and at the time when I was coming up with that, there were different agencies. There are still agencies that place people. So I was able to get in through those agencies, and they take a big cut of your salary, but it's a way to develop contacts and case studies so that you could try to do it on your own after that.
Right. No, I think those are very good pieces of advice. When you initially were looking into becoming an ad executive, was that something that you're like, oh yes, this is something I'm passionate about, or was there something else that kind of drew you to that?
Well, I've always been interested in consumer behavior and marketing and all that. I got my MBA in that. And my first initial job out of business school, which was about 21 years at this point, is I worked for L'Oreal and I worked for Maybelline, and I was what they call CPG, consumer packaged goods. It's a pretty standard track out of an MBA program, a top MBA program. That's like you work for Procter, I'm not Procter, I'm sorry. Procter and Gamble, Kraft. Back then there was no e-commerce, right? 2004, right? So
Right.
you needed shampoo, you went to CVS and you bought 3 brands, right? There was no independent brands, none of this, no Target, none of this nonsense, right? So that was like the big marketing thing. And that might still be the case. I don't believe so. So you go to one of the big brands, and I was fairly young when I went to business school. I was in my late 20s. I was the youngest person in my class. So when I graduated, I quickly realized that corporate America was like not for me. The way there was a lot, because my first job out of college was I was an independent consultant. I worked as a Big 5 consultant. I worked at Deloitte Consulting. And Deloitte Consulting is a powerhouse consulting firm, and it was my first choice. But consulting was very, very flexible in a lot of ways. It was very like, if you had a good manager, you had a good project team, you got to travel the world. I lived abroad for years on somebody else's dime when I was like 21 years old, 23. And I was living the life. And so then I got into corporate America with this cubicle and this like, I had a really awful manager. I had a great manager when I was hired, but then I had someone come in who was really annoying and micromanaged. And I was like, this ain't it. And at the time, there weren't a lot of other companies in Manhattan. And I was like, I'm not living in Manhattan in my 20s and paying $2,000 a month in rent so I can take a train 3 hours a day to Connecticut. So I was like, what is the marketing that I can do within Manhattan? And at the time, it was ad agencies. So I'd love to tell you that I had this, I want to be an advertising executive. No, it was like, what is the life that I want? I think if you look at the, it's kind of funny. I'm talking to you. I'm realizing this. It was all about lifestyle for me. Like, what are my personal goals? And then I fit my career around that and I made it work.
Mm.
And I think that is the characteristic of any entrepreneur. They are extremely resourceful and they don't follow rules the way other people tell them they need to follow rules. Just as an example, I'll give you is I worked at L'Oreal for a while. So I had traditional marketing experience. Then I went to the ad agency land. I worked there for about 5 years in a couple of different ad agencies. And at the time, that was a really bad career move. Okay. Because an ad agency is a step down from a MBA level marketing position in a firm. And at the time, digital marketing was just starting. This whole notion of digital ads, like what you see as like B-roll ads and pre-roll ads and whatever, I don't even know what people call them now. All of this was new. Okay. New. None of this technology existed. So I had the traditional marketing experience, and then I had the ad agency digital experience right at the birth of digital. So, and anyone will tell you is have the skills that nobody has yet, right? Who's popular now? People who've got AI, right? Because AI is coming, but not everyone knows how to work with it. So when I moved to California, marketing companies were looking for people with digital experience. And I had both. And nobody else had both. So that's how I got a lot of my first contracts. By doing what everyone told me was a bad idea. So listening to your own guidance system. And I could lie and be like, oh yeah, I had this macro plan, and no, it worked out. I listened to what I wanted to do and it worked. I made it work out for me and better than it would have otherwise. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does. I was kind of interested in that because I've done a little bit of independent contracting, and um I made the mistake of doing this when I didn't know what I was passionate about. It was like I kind of knew what are my long-term goals overall, what I want to achieve, but I didn't know it was like what is my thing. And so it was kind of like I had the mindset of, oh, well, like I work a 9 to 5 job, I have to do this thing because I think it's going to be profitable, and then I can do, what I want to do and figure that out. And I was like, that is not. And I finally kind of towards the end of 2024 was like I heard something, and it was like when you're passionate about something, the rest will follow. The money will come. And I was like, this I've been taking all the wrong steps of, trying things because I was like, oh, maybe this will work, and then maybe I can start making money and figure out what I really want to do. And so my one of my, I guess you would say, resolutions. I don't really do resolutions, but one of my goals moving forward for this year, which I've stuck with, is like figure out what you're passionate about, like what is your thing, and focus on that, and no more little distractions of oh, maybe this will work. Or so I really appreciate you sharing kind of your experience. And yeah, those were great tips. And I also, I don't know if you've seen, I seen something. It was like supposedly, the what is it called, that like Apple headset thing that's I forget what it's called, Apple Vision or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't stay too much on tech, like emerging tech now, because I'm just
It's kind of like
old.
a VR headset thing
Okay.
that Apple made, that you can essentially like do stuff like you could on your phone, but like with a headset. And I've
Okay.
seen things of like people walking outside wearing them and stuff. A bunch of people wear 'em. But I saw something that like supposedly like 20 years ago they had already drafted up this this vision thing that they made. And like so I was thinking of that when you were talking about having the skills for things that are, are gonna come down the road, like being ahead. I was like, yeah, I mean, and Apple's so successful, and they knew 20 years ago they were gonna make this headset that included things that like weren't didn't even exist at that time.
Right. I mean, so just to answer your question, it's like, that whole thought, find out what you're good at, what you're passionate about. It's really tough, right? Because we gotta survive and all those things.
Yeah,
I think, my story is not going to be everybody's story, but I didn't know that's what the world was going to want in 2011 when I took that jump in 2006. I just knew that I wanted to live my life a certain way and this was going to make it work. And other people telling me you're screwing up everything, I just didn't listen to them. And then I did that. And then I moved to California and I figured it out. And then it turned out, well, gee, A plus B equals C. And nobody else had nobody else had C. Because at that time, people either had high tech experience or they had marketing experience at a big marketing, meaning like consumer marketing at a big firm. Nobody had both. I had both because I happened to make career moves that didn't make any sense. And then it worked out. And I think the biggest thing I can say is, and it's kind of a trite statement. And I was, because I always want to be like, well, this was my experience. And I don't ever be like, it's like, I just feel like, going back to human design just briefly, is that the big notion of human design is, yes, that cosmic blueprint that is like how I sell market influence is going to be different than somebody else. Okay, great. But a fundamental notion of human design is you're an energetic being. And a lot of human design, you could apply human design not to business. You could apply human design to personal development. Human design is a personal development tool. It's not actually a business tool. I apply aspects of it to business. So it's not a marketing tool. Okay. A lot of people would actually argue with me that I do it this way because there's a lot of divisiveness in the community because people like to argue about stuff. So, but ultimately it's like, that your energy flows in a certain way and going with the flow, for lack of a better term, or glowing with your energetic flow. And it kind of speaks to what you're saying, which was, um, what lights you up is maybe going to work for you more than calculating in your head what's going to be the right move. And there are people who can do that. There are very successful people, I know them, who will look ahead and say, this is the skill set that's needed. I'm going to become that skill set. I don't care about this job, but it makes a lot of money. And they have a strategic plan about the money they're going to make. And they do that. And they invest that money and then they are doing really well financially. And I can't operate that way. And I would argue nobody who's an entrepreneur and nobody who takes real risk can operate that way. We're not designed that way. So I couldn't stay in those jobs. I had no choice but to do something different. It wasn't really I was like, I'm not going to commute 3 hours a day to Connecticut. F all that. I'm only going to be in my 20s once. And now as someone who's going to be 48 this year, I can tell you that the last 20 years have been a freight train. And so I don't regret that because time goes really fast. And so, you know, you just got to do what I wouldn't say just do what makes you happy because, well, do that if it works for you. But I would say do things your way. Find a way to do things your way. And then trust that that's going to work out for you. It's kind of the same thing, but a little different. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there's two, like, there are other things that make me happy that like wouldn't necessarily make sense as a career move. It's like you
Yeah.
can still do things as hobbies, but so like yeah, I would say to add to that, like for me when I kind of was I was like, I have all these other things, but that was my biggest thing that I kept thinking was like, what is my thing? Like, what am I going to be known for? And ultimately that also has to connect with something that I'm passionate about. I'm not gonna, go start a business of something that I'm like, oh, I don't like doing this, or
Right.
there's a balance of it. Ultimately, I would say it's like, think of the things that you're passionate about, create a list, and then kind of what I did was I took a course, and it teaches you how to make a business plan, and it going through, profitability, kind of like narrowing down, like, okay, like you have to kind of gauge, like, there's some things where maybe this is not a great idea, but I'm passionate about it. It's like you could still, like I said, do those things as hobbies, but
Exactly.
uh, I would you have to think about it also, like I said, like strategically, because ultimately, no matter what you do, it's going to be a risk. You're always going to be taking risks. You could do this, and it ends up not being what you end up doing for the rest of your life. You could end up choosing another career, but you just have to start somewhere. Because I know, like, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people felt that way in their lives, is like, it gets overwhelming. It's like, what is it? And then, there's all these options, there's all these things now, like, I could do this or that. And it's like, don't be worried of, oh, if I try this, if this isn't going to work out, and I wasted that time. Because it's like, it's just bringing you one step closer to where you're actually meant to be. So it's like, you
Yeah.
just gotta find like a balance of it.
Yeah, you have to find a balance of it, and I think that's a message that is propagated in society. If you're going to do your own thing and you're going to take risk, and that's a big message of my podcast, right? Which is, it's like, and the brand, it's called The Aligned Alchemist. It's based on the book The Alchemist. If anyone's familiar with that book, I'm not sure if you are, but it's the motion of the man on the quest and the journey, and he ignored what other people were telling him, and that's how he found his pot of gold. And the notion of alchemy is that you turn mistakes and missteps and failures into feedback, and you actually probably are going to use a couple of lessons from those mistakes on your way. So you're just reframing the notion in society and allowing society to tell you that you made a mistake, that you know um you didn't build, so now you're starting over, right? That's a decision to allow that message to be true.
Right.
If it's not true for you, then all you did was try something and find out you don't like it, and you tried something else. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to do that because of the societal message that's given, that you're flaky, you can't figure out what you want to do, you're a failure, you're this or that. You have to really be self-aware enough to know that, are you speaking to yourself, or are you listening to other people? Because if it's the latter, they're not going to live your life. And the older you get, the less time you have and the less you care. Because a lot of the people who have opinions don't matter.
Right.
Right? So it's are you familiar with Ikigai?
It's called what? Sorry, you cut out.
Ikigai. It's a Japanese philosophy. It's kind of well known, but essentially the Ikigai philosophy of Japanese is, there's an intersection point. There's a diagram. If you Google it, you'll see a diagram. It's an intersection point of, what does the world need? Think of like Venn circles. What does the world need? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what can you get paid to do? And
Yeah,
where that intersection point is of those four concentric circles, I believe it's four. I haven't looked at this in a while. I believe it's four.
I think it is. I think I know what you're talking about. Yep.
That would be your ikigai. And I know that means something in Japanese, like we don't even have the words for it in English, like your sweet spot, your go-to. And so, I think that is something to be aware of, ideally,
Right.
to
Yeah,
strive for.
and I feel like that, like, ties well in with, like, kind of what I was saying. I feel like that would be like a great resource for people who are, you know, kind of trying to figure that out, having like a set formatting. Yeah, those are I I'm not like there's a lot of things I've heard of, but I'm not, you know, I mean, I'm not at the point where I'm like I could be able to explain it as well as you could. But as soon as you said I was like the four things, I was like, yeah, no, um I'm familiar with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was trying to think. There was another thing you said that I really liked that you brought up, but yeah, especially with like yeah, thinking like, oh, I need to like, oh, people don't support me, or you know what I mean, like, oh, I can't do this because you know, my family doesn't support this decision, or you know, ultimate like for me, my advice is like ultimately it's your life. I mean, there's gonna be tons of people who are, you know, think that you're crazy. Why would you choose to do that? Or you know what I mean? Like I've uh, felt that, and I've it's like you kind of just it's not that you don't care, but it's like again, they're not living your life. They don't know why you're doing what you're doing. They just see, you know, it from the background, and a lot of people, you know, make assumptions, and you know, but ultimately you have to do what is best for you. And even sometimes that's making decisions that, you know, you're look back, you're like, oh, why did I do that? But you also like have to like kind of what you're mentioning, like reframing your mindset, which I've worked on because like I you know, where I work now, it's most aligned with like where I want to go. And I chose that purposely, but all the previous positions I've had, it's like, you know, it's easy to be like, oh, those were a waste. Like I worked at a daycare and stuff. None of that aligns. But then you know, reframing your mindset and being like, what are the key things that you learned from those things? And realizing it's not a mistake. Like working at a daycare, now I know that when I have children down the road, when I have children, I will know things like how to, you know, change them, how to make a bottle, like things that I would have had to learn on the fly, you know, and a lot of new parents do. And so, you know, it's just taking the positive things and also acknowledging the negative. I've been taking this it's called the 7 Universal Laws program, and it was free. I found it on Facebook, and I we're on like day 3. We've done 3 of them so far, and like I've learned a lot of cool stuff. I don't know if you're
I'm
I'm
familiar with, yeah, I think it's based on a book. So when you, yeah, I think, yeah,
right, because
it's
I
a,
know
yeah.
there's the 12 universal laws, and even those like I don't know what they are, but the I know that the ones that she mentions are kind of different than the 12 universal laws that like I've seen. And it's very interesting because you know the ones we've gone through is like the law of duality, and then we did the law of transformation, and then we just did the law of reflection. And this is like a whole new thing to me. I you know didn't know anything about this stuff, but it's really interesting because she does like little diagrams and stuff showing you kind of um like for example what I was thinking of is the law of duality, how you have essentially you have like a scale, and one side's the positive and the negative, and this is like you can use it like with experiences in your life, and it's like you have to find the positive of the negative and the negative of the positive so that it balances out, so that you're at she called it a polarizing lower mind. um and I found it really interesting because it's like we can see positive in things, we can see negative of things, but we it's for me it's like I'm like, oh yeah, I don't see both. Like for example, um say like going to work, okay? It's like some people it's like, "Oh, I don't wanna go to work," right? I'm like, "Okay, well what is the positive going work?" Well, I earn income. I'm able to, you know, I would like to say I make decent money. I'm able to afford things that I like. Um and the negative, uh I don't they're long hours. But then also like then you take them and then you add positive to the negative, and it sounds kind of confusing, but it's really interesting because then it's like, okay, so I work long shifts, but a positive could be to the negative is that I get to learn while I earn. I have access to courses and stuff. You know, that's a resource that I'm given for free. And then, you know, where I earn income, a negative could be to that is that I have often have thoughts of like, oh, I could be doing something else, working on my own stuff because I have other passions outside of my 9 to 5, obviously. So it's like, it's kind of, it's, it was a weird way, like being like, okay, so, and another example is like attachments. You're like attached to something. If you don't see like, oh, okay, like her example was, say you're like, oh, I'm expecting to win $100, and then you don't end up getting it, and then you get disappointed. But because you were attached to it and you didn't see what the negative was of actually getting that money, and then vice versa. So I think it's like very interesting. It's a new thing to me, so I'm maybe not the best at explaining it, but it's all the three laws she's done so far has like tied in together. They're really starting to like make sense to me. Found it very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just a reframe. Like everything, you can reframe it in any way you want. Um, and easier said than done at the time, but it's I think a big part of navigating any challenge or any new chapter or anything related to business and life. Anything. You can't get stuck in the past mistakes. You can't get stuck in past choices. You'll never move on. It's quicksand.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I've already done like some reframing work, but I always find it, cool to come across new stuff because it makes me kind of go back and be like, okay, maybe there's certain things that I still, haven't necessarily touched on that, using this new resource, I'm able to kind
Yeah.
of be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Right. So you was getting into functional medicine, was that right after being an ad executive?
So I was independent for a while and then
Right.
I don't know when it was. It was just one of those things I fell into. I was dealing with that condition I had. I did my own research. I was getting frustrated and I did my own research. I bought my own herbs. I'd been working with an herbalist and it was working for me and I was like what's in these herbs and I started just going down a rabbit hole of all this stuff. And I was kind of like you at the time. This was maybe like 15 years ago. And I was like, I don't want to, I didn't want to do what I was doing forever. That independent stuff was just to like, was just a stopgap. I thought until I figured out my next career move or got myself established in California and all that. And, I was like, well, maybe I'll go into functional medicine. Maybe I'll become a nutritionist or something. So then I decided to go all in and get a master's degree, which was a bit extreme. I'm not like that anymore. So I took a lot of like, I'll be like, I'll just do this. And with one of the things with me is once I start something, I finish it. So it took me a long time to finish that degree. It took me like 5+ years because I was like, and I don't know. And then I fell into starting a company and all of that. And there's so many layers to what I've done over the last 14 years. It's hard to like articulate it into like, well, there was a plan and then I did this and then I did this. It's a lot more. I lived my life a lot through like fluidity and there's a method to the madness, but it's hard to communicate it because a lot of it is I'm a big believer in that quote from Steve Jobs, like you connect the dots of life looking backwards. So, I mean, probably if we were to have this conversation in 5 years, I could even, you know, articulate all the things I've done and how they've led me to where I am, if you
Right.
will. And the other thing I just want to say is like, we focus a lot on the outcome or the I did this and then I built this. So my product line, I invented myself. It was patented. It was first to market. I formulated the thing. I brought it to market. And I learned a lot about what I wasn't in that business. I tried to be an entire company by myself, which you can't. I took I was a freelancer and I kind of took that like freelancer attitude towards running a company, and running a company is not being a freelancer. I had to learn that, and I learned that the hard way. And so I'm wrapping that company up and I didn't sell it for like $2 million and retire on a beach somewhere or, $10 million. And so you could look at that and be like, well, what did you do? What was the point of that? Right. I mean, I think it gives me more clout being a business consultant, having actually run a damn business, because a lot of business coaches haven't done jack in their life. Right. It's a very weird industry. But beyond that, I always wanted to launch my own product. I always wanted to launch a physical product. I always wanted to invent something. And so when I get older, when it's going to be too late to make new changes in life, I can look back and say, I did that. And that doesn't translate to a dollar amount. It doesn't translate to a pat on the back from anybody else, right? It just is. And so the reality and the psychology of people is that we regret the things we didn't do, not the things we do.
Right.
And I, in my personal life, the things I did in my 20s, I would never do in my 40s, just because it's of no interest to me to live that kind of lifestyle. So I think we have to just take a more of a bird's eye view on all of this stuff as well. It's not just the ROI. It's not just and that's my view on it. And it's not going to be as financially lucrative if you do one thing and you build it for the rest of your career or your life or whatever. That's not how I roll. So it's not going to work for me.
Yeah. Everybody's different. Everyone has their own thing, and I appreciate you sharing your experience. And yeah, I definitely agree with like not being so focused, because I feel like it's, especially it's like it's gotten even worse with social media, being so comparative and being like, oh, and then I feel like a lot of people struggle with negative self-talk, and kind of, again, like you said, like, oh, I didn't do this or that, but then it's like it seems so easy to do that and it not acknowledge what we did, but it's like those things that we did are really important, and we should be acknowledging them. And I feel like a lot of people are just, they they don't know how to be proud, like, it, if that makes sense, but kind of just being like, feeling, oh, I haven't done enough, or, and I've personally, struggled with this, and I still, have times at that, but it's just, again, like you said, like reframing your mindset, and also like not having, when you have like an expectation of certain things, that's kind of where you end up feeling like you failed in a certain way, or so I definitely understand your
Yeah.
viewpoint on that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate. I grew up in an era before social media. So unfortunately, I have started being back on social media for this business, and I'm actually not going to plan to make it a big part of my path. Just being my age, a lot of the people I work with are my age or older or in their 40s. And so I would probably find a lot of them in other places. Um, and so I can't do social media. Like as someone who knows what life was like without it, I see it as performative for what it is. I can kind of like see it for what it is.
Mhm.
It's a lot of performative stuff. And I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me, but I also limit my time with it.
Yeah, I think I understand. A lot of people are like, oh, well, maybe for my business or whatever. I think it's kind of like what you're doing with it. Like, for example, I don't like, I watch certain videos like YouTube or something, but I don't really like things like Instagram, or like spending too much time on TikTok, cuz that's really where I've found the issue is a lot of short form content, or so easy to just see a picture of somebody, saying the stuff like, "Oh, I did all this," and then being like, "Oh," like immediately kicking in that thought, and it's like, a lot of people struggle with comparison and being like, "Oh, this
Yep.
person's," but it's an unreal expectation, because it's just a picture or a video. You're not actually seeing like what's going on in that person's life, or anything that they've gone through to get to where they are. So it's like, I don't I like, the only stuff I really, like I said, watch is I don't really try to watch like short form content. Try to limit that. I only really will go on to like post stuff or clear my notifications. But then, like, the stuff I do watch, it's it's not. I very much like kind of like documentary stuff or things that are like kind of deep diving. I'm very much like I like the psychology behind things, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm into. But I would advise people, especially if you kind of notice like, yeah, I struggle with comparing myself to other people, kind of trying to, also limit what the time that they're spending on social media, even their phone, because there's apps and other stuff too that can kind of be, not great for your mental health if you struggle with those kind of things. So
Yeah, I am. As I start to go more into this business, I'm kind of determining where social media would fit as part of that. To the point where, like, if I had to make social media a big part of my life because of it, I would choose a business accordingly. Like, that's how strongly I feel about it. Um, but everyone's different. I'm not on TikTok. I know a lot of people have been really successful on TikTok because of my age demo. I can get away with not being on there at all and not miss out much.
right.
Um, what little bit I've seen, it just feels like another planet. I don't really understand it. Um, I briefly was a tutor. Like I've done 10,000 odd jobs in my entrepreneurial career, right? And just little things to pay the bills sometimes when I needed to and all that. And one of the things I did was I was an SAT tutor prep for like, just helping high school kids who are like at a certain level with their SAT get to like, and all they do is all the entire time I was there, they're just like on their phone on TikTok. And like, I was like, I was really, I mean, I don't have children. I was like genuinely disturbed by what they were being exposed to at such a young age. 15 when I was coming up was very different than 15 now. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to sound like an old whatever, but it just doesn't seem natural.
I'm 21 and I agree. So I mean, I think it's I could honestly do a whole episode's worth, even more, ranting about kind of the things that I'm not necessarily a fan of when it comes to social media, and that's why I say like the content I do consume is revolving around kind of things like that, where there's just a lot of things that especially with like influencers or a lot of people that they looked up to, like YouTubers. There's a lot of issues with kind of some of the people using their power not for good things, and it comes along with, I have all this huge fan base that trusts me, and to me, I almost sometimes think it's crazy because I'm like, you don't really know this person, and also like you just know what you see in a video, which is edited to what they want you to see.
Right.
So to me, it's just kind of crazy. I've watched videos on crypto scams involving YouTubers and their audience, and it's like, to me, I also feel like another world. I can't. The parasocial relationships is a huge issue that unfortunately is. I mean, I there are people talking out about it. I need to plug my laptop in. There are people talking about it, but I don't feel like it's getting the recognition that it should, and being addressed as it should. It's still very much a large issue, that I feel like is slowly being chipped away at. But it makes me scared for when I have kids, because I'm like, if that's how it is now,
Right.
imagine 5, 10, 20 years from now, what's gonna happen, what the relationships are gonna be like.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to see a fundamental change. The next couple of years, 1 to 3 years, are going to bring a huge change in social media and influencers and influencer worship. I think we're going to head a little bit back in I wouldn't say the right direction. I would say a different direction. I think there's going to be like a chasm online with certain people are doing that, and then other people are in a completely just online in a completely different way, a more pure way, going back to the way it used to be, like 2008 era. So yeah, I mean, that is one of the challenges of entrepreneurship. I'm not sure how I'm trying to make podcasting and YouTube a big part of what I do. I enjoy those platforms the most. However, in the B2B space, if you're business to business owner, I think Instagram is still like the way you reach people. I think that that's still the where the business is. I don't think it's as much on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if I'm right about that, but it depends on what you do. What I do is pretty niche. Um, but I was going to say something and I forget now. Doesn't matter. Oh, but here's the thing with social media. So I have a friend. She's a little younger than me, so she's not young, and she's a coach. And her whole attitude, which I wish I could be, she's like, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So she's like, all right, what's growing right now? This is about fall of 2023, summer. She's like, TikTok is where it's at. So she did 3 TikTok videos a week, day. And her thing is she's a law of attraction coach. So she's a coach, but she primarily does law of attraction stuff. And she killed it on TikTok. I don't know what she's doing now. I don't know if TikTok has changed after the ban or if things have changed, but she went a millionaire within a year. Wow. So it changes lives. I mean, if you're willing to work it and you can leverage it and you can stay in your lane and be like, this is my goal and I'm not focused on everything else, I think it can be very powerful. I can't do that. I would need an assistant to be my social media person. I can't be on there myself, for me personally.
Right. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, I've had to work on having some boundaries with it. I was having issues where I was spending way too much time on TikTok. It was just unhealthy.
Okay.
And, doom scrolling is what they call it. And I ultimately ended up making the decision of deleting TikTok on itself. And I didn't have it for probably about 6 months. And then finally, decided to get back just to post stuff. And I really think like taking that break was very helpful for me because I noticed I'm like, this is an issue. I need to separate and kind of create boundaries for when I ultimately get it back, recognizing I don't want to be spending time on here just watching random videos. I ultimately, if I am consuming anything, it needs to be, entrepreneur stuff, not those. There's just so much random stuff. And I'm like, nope. Like if I notice, I'm like, okay, now videos are coming up that aren't serving me. It's like, get off the app. Don't let myself. So it's just ultimately, it's like it's so easy to get sucked into it, and that's why it's like I really emphasize like trying to find boundaries, like how much time and what are my goals of going into, kind of like we were saying, like what are my goals of going into it? Am I just going on here to post content, or am I trying to consume more knowledge in certain things? But even then, I would say go to other platforms like YouTube or something. You get more in depth, and also you're less likely to come up with all these random videos that like ultimately have nothing to do with what you're on there for. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we're kind of nearing the end. I wanted to give you a minute or so, a couple minutes to say anything maybe you felt like we didn't discuss, anything you want to share, advice, just giving you the space to share anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I shared a lot of what I wanted to share from a like advice philosophy perspective. It's like know yourself. A lot of these systems about human design and all this other stuff, they are know thyself, and that's when you know yourself, then you can be ineffable with all the advice gets filtered through that, and then you know what's for you and what's not for you. I think and I've said this on videos I've done on my channel, which is like, it's one thing if you make a poor decision or whatever, you do something and you're like, oh, that didn't work out. I wouldn't have done that to do it again. That's one thing. I think when it stings is when you didn't do it. You decided I was going to go do something this way. I was going to take a left, and you listened to somebody who said take a right. And then you take the right, and then it doesn't work out. That's the sting. That's where I believe regret comes from. When you take the left and it doesn't work out, I think it's just learning, and I think it's easier to get over.
Right.
That's my experience. Everyone's different. So that would be my parting wisdom, if you will. And I just wanted to say, I don't know, that like my brand is The Aligned Alchemist. I'm on YouTube, and I have a podcast called Rewiring. And those are the kind of right now the two places to find me. I'm on The Aligned Alchemist everywhere, but those are two places to find me.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yes, I'm gonna have that stuff linked as well. And those were great things to part with. I think that, kind of come full circle and kind of giving that you know summing up what we talked about, and just emphasizing, like, you know um I'm sorry, my brain, it's been a long day. I worked all
Yeah,
day,
it's
and
a
then
long
you
day.
came on here, so I brain, I have these issues
All
every
good.
time, because I decide to do episode right after work, and I worked like 11 hours, and then just
Wow.
malfunction. But I'm passionate about it. I still come on here. I love these chats. I love networking. Um,
Great.
I I appreciate you so much coming on
I
tonight.
appreciate you having me.
Of
Yeah.
course. And yeah, I will also to you said it. Could you say again the website you were saying for the human design? And I'll have that linked as well. But
I don't know the exact, but it's Jovian Archive.
okay, yeah, I'm
It may
gonna
not
look
be the
that up
exact
and
website,
try.
but if somebody puts Jovian Archive into a Google, that'll be the first website to come up. It might actually be, yeah, I think I might be correct about that. It might just be jovianarchive.com. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that again, because I'm gonna look it up after this and try and find the website and have that
Yeah, yeah.
link as well. So thank you so much for coming on, and getting us to learn more about you. And I don't know if the viewers knew what functional medicine or human design was, but I know I definitely learned a lot. So I really appreciate it.
Good. I'm glad. It was fun to have you. Fun to be here to chat.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I hope that you have a wonderful night. As for anyone who to find Minds on a Mission, where pretty much I used to list them out, but it's on a bunch of streaming platforms. So yeah, you can look it up and find episodes. The most up to date place would be my YouTube. I'm still working on getting some stuff fully updated, so I would check that out. And yeah, I hope that you guys have a wonderful Friday night, and I hope you have a good weekend, Sunita.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome.